It all started many years ago during the month of costumes and candy and make-believe. Children dressing up as ghosts and demons, and whatever else your imagination can conjure. Maybe that's what October means to you. To me, it's something very different. Something much worse. For me, it will always be the time when I came face to face with him. The thing who lives in the shadows. He can be found in dark closets, deserted attics, and underneath the beds of little boys and girls. The one who, when you run to your parents and beg them to listen about the creature that's waiting for you when the lights go out, they will simply smile and say, "That was only a nightmare." But some nightmares are real. Perhaps you would like to finally know mine. Do you believe in true love? I do. I've always believed. I've always believed since the first time I saw Jessica. Maybe you're going to tell me that an 8-year-old little boy can't possibly be in love. Nonsense. Hey, you must be the boy who was always playing catch by himself in the backyard. Jessica smiled as she stood not at all awkwardly on my front sidewalk. I was lost for words, having no idea that a girl had moved in next door, and embarrassed that she had seen me practicing, almost always alone. It was true that I didn't have a lot of friends. I was a bit of a loner, and I think some kids thought that I was standoffish, and so they left me alone. But not Jessica. Mind if I play catch with you? She continued, pulling out her own leather glove that I hadn't even noticed. I wanted to say yes, but let me tell you, meeting your true love has a brain-freezing effect. Instead, I just stood there. I didn't even blink. Maybe she knew that I wasn't going to save the situation anytime soon. I bet it's more fun with two people. Playing baseball by yourself is more work than it's worth. She continued, laughing to herself and paying no attention to my silence. We walked together into my backyard, her leading the way and me trying to keep up. I wondered to myself how old she was as she was a little taller. How old are you? I blurted out, not smoothly at all. 10, she said, about 20 feet away as she threw the baseball in an almost perfectly straight line directly into my glove. It was a miracle that I didn't drop it. Nice catch, she said, holding her own glove up in preparation. Taking a deep breath, I pulled back my arm and I tried to throw as skillfully as she had. That didn't happen, of course, but it wasn't an impossible catch either. Jessica took 2 steps to her left and plucked it out of the air and into the soft leather with a thud. Nice catch, I said, smiling genuinely as our eyes met. We didn't say much the next few minutes. We didn't need to. I know it sounds corny, but there's no other way to describe the comfortable feeling in the air between us. It was like we had always known each other. Looking back now, I don't think it was a coincidence at all that we were brought together that summer. Whatever evil force that would soon mark our lives, perhaps there was also something good. You could sense it in the air that day. The white lilies my aunt planted up the front walkway, neatly arranged in 2 perfect columns to your right and left. The brand new smell of the Rawlings leather glove my dad had bought for me. The look of my black cat, Kanga, as she sat perched upon the porch railing, curiously watching the two of us throw a small white object back and forth. Maybe it reminded her of a bird, her eyes following because she was watching her prey. Or maybe Kanga could feel something in the air on that perfect fall day, so many years ago. Losing track of time, the next thing I remember was a quick creaking on the back porch door, and my mother's voice calling out across the yard. John, dinner's ready. Her voice trailed off as she noticed that I wasn't alone. "Oh, hello there," she called out, walking past me to Jessica. "I'm John's mother, Martha," she said, extending her hand towards the little girl. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Jessica. It's very nice to meet you." The two of them shook hands, and my mom turned and shot me a, "How did you forget to tell me about this?" sort of look. "Would your friend like to join us for dinner?" she continued, looking from me to Jessica. "Would you like to stay for dinner, dear? We're having pot roast." Jessica took a second as she glanced over at me, maybe even checking to see if I was tired of her company. The shy smile on my face must have said it all. A very clear, not by a long shot. She looked back up at my mother, Martha. "Sure, do you mind if I ask my parents first, though?" "Of course," my mom replied. "Go get washed up, John." I watched as Jessica gracefully leapt over the bright yellows and reds of the wildflower patch and disappeared into the trees between our houses. Sitting at the dinner table with my father and mother, it wasn't long before we heard a quiet knock on the door. I smiled at my parents, ran through the house, and I quickly turned the handle. "Hey, Jessica," I said, trying to hold in at least some of my excitement. "Hey," she said, smiling. "My parents said it would be okay if I stayed over for dinner." Nodding, I led the way to our dining room and I introduced her to my father. The conversation came easily enough that night, a fitting end to the day that started such a beautiful friendship. After Jessica went home, I washed my face and I brushed my teeth without even having to be told, and then I rushed off to bed. Leaving a small lamp on beside my bed, I watched as my father came in, pushing the door open with a soft creak. "Damn door," he said to himself, not knowing that I could hear him. "Hey, buddy," he continued. "Your girlfriend seems nice." "She's just a friend," I said, smiling. "Uh-huh," he replied, nudging me gently on my shoulder and giving me an easy wink. "Well, get some rest. A long day tomorrow." He kissed my forehead and held out his hand towards the old lamp before pausing. His eyes met mine. "John, do you want to try turning off the lights tonight? There's nothing to be afraid of, bud." I swallowed nervously, but the courage of the day won out, and for the first time, I relented. "Sure, I can do it." Smiling, my father nodded. "You can do it," he repeated, flicking the light off softly. As he made his way out into the hallway, I added, "But Dad, can you leave the door open a little?" He didn't take long to think it over. "Sure, I'll leave it open just a crack." Smiling, I replied, "Thanks." I watched as he stepped out of my bedroom and pulled the door nearly closed. There was a small stream of light that still made its way into my bedroom, just enough to allow me to make out the shadowy forms of my dresser and various random shapes in my room. For the first time in my life, the darkness didn't scare me at all, not one bit, and then I realized why. Today was the day that I met Jessica. It seemed like we had known each other for... There was a noise that came suddenly from the dark corner of my room. I must be dreaming, I thought. The sound became louder, and this time I was sure that it was real. But I couldn't move, and even worse, I couldn't scream. I was frozen. Staring towards the far corner, my eyes were not yet adjusted to the darkness. A crack of light from the hallway still shone through, but it was dimming. The closet door seemed to open in slow motion then. First, the soft turn of the handle, and then a few moments later, a long, slow creak as it fully opened. Why couldn't I scream? There was silence, and then rapid footsteps that journeyed from the closet across the wooden floor in the direction of my bed. Those footsteps seemed to last for minutes, causing a sensation of fear to fall over me that was so strong that I thought I was going to vomit. Still, I couldn't move, and I could only wait helplessly as the dark figure appeared to dance its way closer. All the while, the small fraction of light from the hallway would catch its shape at the most terrifying moments. It was difficult to see in the near darkness, but as it got closer, I saw that it was only 3 or 4 feet in size. The size of a little kid, I thought. But this was no kid. This was something else. Its posture was crooked, and one leg looked to be far shorter than the other. As it shuffled towards me, its arms were moving far too rapidly, creating a mesmerizing, terrifying effect. I don't know how I didn't pass out from the thundering beat of my heart. Perhaps I did. But the next thing I remember, it was pulling the rocking chair up to the very edge of my bed. There was an uncomfortable scratching sound, a plop as the creature sat down, and then a soft back and forth rocking motion that went on for a few seconds, and then it stopped suddenly. Its barely visible face leaned in closer towards mine. Unable to scream or speak, I began to hyperventilate, as I thought I would pass out for sure this time. I could feel his breath on my face. It smelled like rot and death, and spoiled meat. There was silence for a long while, and then...
"I am the teller of stories, little one."
He paused.
"Listen now."
And then his hands could be heard scraping against paper, as the book that he was clutching opened slowly, and a reddish light emanated from the pages, illuminating the lower half of his face. The rocking chair began to groan as the creature swayed back and forth excitedly, and the crimson light shone just brightly enough to show his mouth grimacing wildly and revealing a too wide row of needle-like teeth. His eyes met mine as he smiled, and then began.
"You always knew to fear your closet door and keep one eye open forevermore. Something was waiting for you to douse the light. It dances across your room at night. Hungry, it shambles towards your bed. You forget in that moment the brave words your father said. Terror washes over you, more than any little child should feel. And those sleepless nights continue, making you an ever more delicious meal."
The red light was forced back inside the old pages then, cloaking the thing's face back in darkness. I could feel him lean in even closer than before, and sniff.
"Good,"
he simply said, before dragging the rocking chair back into the corner and disappearing into the closet. There was a creak, and then the door closed completely. All the horror that I had been forced to hold in suddenly came out all at once, swirling into a confused mixture of screams and cries. "Dad!" I yelled, rushing out towards the hallway and meeting him halfway between our bedrooms. "What's wrong?" he asked, scooping me up. I told him everything, sobbing onto his shoulder while my mother rushed in from the downstairs porch, where she had been up late reading. "What happened?" she said, listening as I continued. As I finished my story, my father's eyes looked from my mother's and back to mine. He wasn't a superstitious man, but the look on his face wasn't completely doubting. "Stay here, I'll go check." "No, Dad," I interrupted, grabbing the back of his shirt as he stepped into my room. Kneeling down next to me, he continued. "It's okay, buddy. I'll be okay." He stood and then walked back into my room. The main light flicked on easily, and my dad made his way over to the closet door. He paused for a moment, seeing the baseball bat that I'd kept propped a few feet away. He grabbed it, walked back to the closet and gripped the handle tightly, readying himself if anything was indeed inside. My dad opened the door quickly, and nothing. Of course, I thought. Of course there was nothing there. "Dad, it's gone now, but it was there. I swear to God that it was there." His face changed from slightly worried to understanding. "John, it was just a nightmare." I couldn't sleep that night, and the next day, I pleaded with my parents to let me sleep in their bedroom. They relented, my mom setting down the couch cushions on the floor and laying a sleeping bag over it. I stayed in their room for almost a week, my father not thrilled about the idea, the concerned look in his eyes becoming more obvious day by day. But it wasn't all that bad. Jessica and I would spend nearly every day together, playing catch or tag or whatever else our minds could imagine. Early one morning at the breakfast table, my father sat across from me. "John, it's time you grow up. This has been going on for a while now and your mom has convinced me to be patient with you. But enough is enough, bud. Tonight, you're going to have to sleep in your own room." "But Dad..." "No buts," he continued. "Look, I promise I'll come check on you throughout the night. You can even leave the lights on and the hallway door open." I wanted to beg him further, but I had seen that look before with my father, and there would be no talking him out of it. It wasn't until that evening before dinner that I finally told Jessica the truth. "I've been sleeping in my parents' room for a while now," I said with some embarrassment, as the two of us swung slowly on the outdoor swing behind her house. I told her everything about the monster that I had seen, even reciting the poem word for word. I thought that she was going to laugh. I thought she was going to make fun of me and tell me how much of a coward I was. But she didn't do any of that. The swinging stopped, and her eyes studied mine. "Here," she said. "Take this." Surprised, I watched as she unhooked the dark necklace from around her neck and reached over towards me. "Take it," she repeated, opening my hand softly and placing it inside. She closed my hand back up over it. "No, it's yours, I can't," I replied. Shaking her head, she continued. "My great-grandmother gave it to me before she died. I used to have nightmares when I was younger, and she said that this would put an end to all of it. It's kind of like a dream catcher, I think." She paused for a moment. "I haven't had a single nightmare since." Seeing that I was still hesitant, she said one last thing. "Just to borrow, until you fight off your monster." I smiled and nodded, and then I gave her the biggest hug that I'd ever given anyone. That night, I stared into the bathroom mirror as I brushed my teeth and I washed my face. I was still terrified, but I was as ready as I could be. I would leave the light on, the bedroom door open, and my dad would check on me throughout the night. I even had Jessica's necklace. Dad walked me into my bedroom and checked the closet carefully, like we had talked about. I got into bed, and then he sat down next to me. "I'm proud of you, John." He thought for a moment, searching for the right words. "You're braver than you think, son." I said nothing, steeling myself, as if I were a soldier preparing for a great battle. He walked into the hallway and then looked back over his shoulder. "I'll be back to check on you." And then he was gone. Nothing happened for a long time, yet my eyes stayed glued to my closet door as I waited and waited. 11, midnight, 1 a.m. A small part of me started wondering if it had really just been a nightmare, and that's when my bedroom light flickered 3 times and it went out. This was followed by my bedroom door creaking slowly shut.
Johnny,
the voice said, and once again I found myself frozen. The closet door swung open, and the creature shambled across the wooden floor towards my bed, tightly clutching the tattered old book.
I've missed you,
it said, pulling the rocker up to the very edge of my blankets and settling itself there. The dreadful groaning of the rocking chair increased steadily as its hands anxiously pried open the cover, and once again the red light glowed in a small, malevolent circle around us.
You thought that I, old Mr. Creeps, was only a dream. A nightmare where despite your best attempts, you could not scream. The days went by, you slept protected on your parents' floor. All the while I waited, hidden away behind your closet door.
The red light grew brighter then, as the creature reached inside the ancient dusty cloak he was wearing, and pulled out what looked like a knife, and then a fork. His face leaned in close, his black eyes staring into mine as he sniffed at me again.
Just right.
His eyes changed from black to a gleaming red, as he gripped the knife more tightly and prepared for his feast.
I believe I'll start with your hands.
But as he reached out to grip my hand with his own, something happened. There was a jolt that almost felt like electricity, and he was thrown back into the chair. He squealed, shooting his eyes from the bright light of the necklace that Jessica had given me. The light flickered but held, and as he slumped back towards the closet door, he spoke one last time.
That magic will fade soon enough.
The closet door shut again, and the creature was gone. Her necklace had saved me, at least for now. I didn't sleep at all that night, but somehow I knew that the power that had protected me was still strong. As the evening continued though, its powerful light seemed to fade, and by morning when my dad came to wake me up, there was only the last ember of a once roaring fire. I told Jessica about what had happened, and that I didn't think that the necklace had much power left. She nodded. I'm sleeping over at your place tonight. I knew the courageous thing to do was argue, but instead, I found myself doing the very opposite, as I nodded and I held back tears. We'll fight it together, she said. Together, I repeated. And then something unexpected happened. I found myself standing up and handing her the baseball from the first day that we had met. We played catch together, my cat Kanga walking over and sitting among the tulips as her green eyes watched us as she had before. October, I thought. I hope whatever force brought us together is still here. The sun went down as it had before, this time a cooler breeze and a chill making its way across the yard with it. We split up, and Jessica came back over around 8 p.m. with her sleeping bag and an old pillow that she insisted was her favorite. She set up her sleeping bag against the wall in the corner away from the closet, as I laid down mine there as well. We had 2 backup flashlights if the power turned off again, and we were as ready as we could be. My dad came in to check on us, before saying something about, "If you kids need anything, just wake me up." The hallway light shut off, and I heard the door to my parents' room far down the hallway close. This was it. "Thank you for being here," I said softly. Jessica flicked on her flashlight and smiled. "You would do the same for me." It didn't take long to think that one over. She was right. I would. A few minutes went by as we waited quietly, before she said one last thing. "Whatever happens, we can't be afraid." I nodded. The clock ticked slowly as the hours went by again. Perhaps the thing was waiting for my parents to fall into a deep sleep. Somehow I knew that whatever happened, the two of us were on our own. It was 1 a.m. exactly when we heard a soft rustling from the closet, and then the door creaked open.
There were 2 little children who sat all alone, preparing to battle a monster unknown. Will they survive? They wondered in dread. No, my razor-sharp teeth will run red, red, red.
The creature moved awkwardly towards us, somehow faster than last time. He was just about to grab my wrist when Jessica called out. "I'm not afraid," she yelled, taking a step towards it.
Oh, but you are.
It replied. "I'm not afraid," she insisted. And this time, as she took a step forward, the thing seemed to retreat. With each step towards the monster, it slunk back further towards the doorway from which it had come. I stepped closer and watched in awe as the thing was backed up to the very edge of the darkness. She took a powerful step towards it, ready to repeat the words a last time and cast the thing back to whatever evil place that it came from. She started, now herself at the very edge. The creature disappeared back into the closet, and then completely, accompanied by a whooshing sound as if it had traveled a great distance, and then silence. It was finally over. Her eyes met mine, and just when I thought that she was going to smile, I saw a different look on her face. For the first time since I had met her, I saw fear. And then she was gone, the monster's hand reaching out and pulling her far into the darkness. There was some other magic at work then, because I was thrown back against the bed, unable to move, as I had been before. Unable to yell or scream, I could only listen as the deep growl of laughter rose up from the darkness, and the creature walked triumphantly back out towards me. This time, as it shambled closer and prepared for its long-awaited meal, I had a very different reaction. A quiet rage began to build inside me as I thought of Jessica. I managed to get out. The creature stopped in surprise only a small distance away. "I'm not," I continued, finding the courage to stand and face him. The fire in his eyes was steady and burning, but the necklace she had given me began to glow as well. "I'm not afraid," I yelled, taking a step towards him. He fell to the floor then, covering his eyes from the light and beginning to crawl back towards the closet. But this time, I stopped him, standing over his monstrous form with hatred. The necklace seemed to pin him down, and his eyes began to ooze a thick red blood. The strength began to fade from his body. "I'm not afraid," I repeated, this time my words causing his red eyes to slowly turn to a glassy white. I was winning. And then he quietly began to laugh.
"She's still alive, you know."
"Where is she?" I yelled down at him. He was dying, but his cruelty hadn't lessened.
"You will continue my work."
"I will never help you," I shouted.
"Oh, but you will. You see, I've trapped a little girl in a story that she will never be able to escape from. She will grow old just as you will, but she will grow old and die alone. Her only company being the words filling the pages around her. You will never be able to find her Yet you will search all the same, through all the frightening stories ever created. And in doing so, you will spread terror throughout the world, as I have.
I looked down at the creature and watched the slow patter of blood fall softly down into my bedroom floor. He drew his last breath and then spoke the words that I will never forget.
I curse you to take my name after I am gone. You will come to be known as Mr. Creepypasta.